Hi, I'm Kelsey Zeiser with Light Reading, and we're here at the big 5G event in Denver, and I'm joined by Kevin McBride with CenturyLink. Good to see you as always.
Good to see you too, Kelsey. How are you?
Great, thanks for staying to the bitter end here.
Absolutely, only for you.
Oh, thanks. So why is it important for a service provider like CenturyLink to be at the big 5G event?
Yeah, so CenturyLink right now, it's a great time to be a wireline provider, right? So as we're here talking to all the MNOs, the mobile network operators, about their 5G radio access networks and the different types of antenna systems they're trying to deploy, they're going to need a fiber optics infrastructure to be able to support that deep penetration. So we've been here not only talking about the default way that people look at leveraging fiber, which is buying fiber from us and connecting their antenna networks. We're also talking about shared services like optical wave as a service, and also leveraging our consumer networks where we have NG-PON2 and the ability to do light differentiation in those kind of facilities, just like we do in our optical transport network. So it's been a great way of meeting the network operators here and being able to have that conversation.
Okay, excellent. And you were on a session earlier this week about security and 5G networks. What are some important security strategies that service providers need to keep in mind as we move toward 5G?
So our security discussion that Steve Casey and I had this week during the first day of the sessions here was related around the control plane, because we're trying to allow more access and more enrichment of the experience in our network. We're also trying to remove humans from making decisions. So we had this conversation on intent-based orchestration and how that can lead to we're having all these data sources entering our data lakes, and we need to validate that we don't get erroneous messages in that control plane that could cause negative effect to the environments in a cloud environment or the network environment. And we went through a couple of scenarios that provoked a conversation that allowed us to walk out of the room and meet a couple of individuals and share business cards to start from both the vendor and the service provider community. That's going to take us to the next steps in our lab of coming up with some ideas to solve this. The immediate ways to solve it, of analyzing every message in the network, is just a no-go because of the amount and the quantity of compute that would be needed to measure the millions and millions of messages per second in our network, right?
And I imagine as IoT devices increase with 5G, that security component is going to be even more important.
Yeah, absolutely. There's been some really interesting vendors here at the event talking about moving the network security into the layer 2 and 3 side of things, and so that's been really interesting to discover here at the event with some of the vendors that participated. And I think that's going to be really important because these IoT devices, they're very small single board type computers. They don't have a lot of real estate to run defensive security tools on them, right? And so by moving that into the layer 2 and 3, it actually makes the device so it has limited, it's running what it's supposed to run, right? And all the security challenges are handled by the network. So it'll be interesting to follow up with that company that we met and what's for the next steps to understand what's up.
Right.
So.
You also had a really interesting discussion this afternoon on edge computing, and you talked about the different edges like metro, regional, and the deep edge. And I wanted to talk to you about the deep edge, mainly because it sounds really cool. But
absolutely.
Can you explain it?
Yeah, absolutely. So let me just start off at the beginning, because if we just dump in the deep edge, we'll be in the central offices, right? So we're dog paddling. Yeah. So starting off in the core of our network, that's really where we started, like all of our NFV type enhancements in the network. Those are our terapops, and with our latest acquisition, level 3, those would be like gateway locations. It's the core of our network where the IP core lives, where it's our IP backbone. The next layer below that is the metro. The metro, we're a company of acquisitions, so we really have 2 major designs and 16 different companies, networks underneath our network. But the 2 major network designs are a hub-spoke design and a ring design, right? And so getting into the metros represent the host offices, the hub site, or the ring host sites in those networks, right? And that's basically the on and off ramps into that market, back into our backbone. The deep edge is when we get into those ring connected central offices or the spoke sites, and it's definitely the area of the network that we've been having the most conversation here in the event, because those are our central offices, right? And so we talked a lot at this event how our COs are transforming and we're removing class 5 and decommissioning class 5 switching. That's freeing up 60 inches and previous ironworks. So it only makes sense for us to go back into those same locations, reuse ironworks for reasons of reusing and not driving more costs into our solutions. But as we get there, those are where we're placing the server hardware, like we've done in our core today, to be able to host the workloads that make sense to host deeper in the network. And 5G, with its 1 millisecond hopes over the next couple of years, definitely getting into the 3 to 5, 5 milliseconds or so over the first couple of years of penetration. The best place to host the workloads for the baseband units, if it's virtualized, is to host either in physical or virtual in the central office. We would definitely lean towards more virtual or on a compute if possible. But then the RAN elements, the power of our network, that's the sites, the deep edge sites are what actually are our wire centers that we bring in all of our fiber optics. It's where our OLT lives and the NG-PON2 type solutions. So it's a great place that we can bring in DMUX Lite if we're using NG-PON2 and bring that directly into our compute services deeper in the network. One layer below that, not as cool a term, the premise, but it's really the most powerful too, because the premise is our UCPE. So as we're going into enterprise branches and we're deploying that CPE device with x86 virtualization, we're able to cut the cost and remove all those appliances and run the software on a 1RU type deployment. So core, metro, deep edge, and the premise.
Yeah. Well, I know premise sounds really important, but I think the deep edge is probably still
Absolutely.
my favorite.
It's a fun name. So
Thanks for your time, Kevin.
absolutely, Kelsey.
It's been a pleasure.
It's been a pleasure as well. Thank you.